Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Hope you're having a great day. I know I am. I'm juiced up. I'm ready to go for the show. We're going to have a lot of fun today. A lot of stuff going on in the world of sports. Don't let anyone tell you anything differently. Oh, yeah. Fever playing tonight against the Las Vegas Aces. Jayson Tatum signing, a record deal in the NBA, 5 years, $315 million. NBA free agency winners, NBA free agency losers. What are the Pacers going to do? They've just got a ton of young talent. Someone from Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue is supposed to join me at 11 to talk barbecuing because the 4th of July, 2 days away. No show from me or Dan that day, obviously. We're going to celebrate this great country's independence. That's going to be a blast. So someone from Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue, which you can find over on Emerson Way, is going to join me. We're going to talk a little barbecuing, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, the best way to enjoy fabulous meats on the 4th of July. Because let's be honest, that's the best part about 4th of July. It's the food you eat. Like, cool, yeah, sure. Fireworks, they're great. They're fun. But I'm out here like let's get the grill outside and let's eat delicious food. But before we get to that, that's coming up at 11. I'm doing something today I've never done. I'm going to open with Top 10 Tuesday because I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be fun. I think you are going to enjoy it, and I know that I enjoyed just making the list in general. Top 10 Tuesdays. It's one of my favorite segments of the week, and today for Top 10 Tuesday, I'm doing buzzwords / phrases that get fans excited about a player or a team. Now, we have to start with just the classic one that we love to talk about here on Indy Sports Ticket, here on 1430, cap space. Okay, everyone that listens to this station, whether it's my show or it's Dan's show, everyone that listens to this station knows that there are plenty of Colts fans out there that fall for the saying, that love to tweet it out, that love to proclaim it to the heavens, quote, "We have cap space." People love it. They love being able to say that. But have you ever noticed that good teams never say this? No good team has ever been like, "Hey, guys, good news, we have cap space." They're like, no, "Hey, guys, good news, we have good players." Okay, like the Chiefs have never won a Super Bowl and been like, "Good news, boys, we have cap space next season." No one's ever said that, okay? Like, good teams don't say that. When the Chiefs win, they're like, "Hey, guys, good news. We have Patrick Mahomes," okay? So cap space, it's this, it's just this thing that people like to throw out there to make them feel better, okay? No good team has ever been excited about having cap space, okay? Like, when the Colts were good in the days of Peyton Manning, no one ever went into the offseason and was like, "Hey, guys, guess what? We have Peyton Manning, but I've got better news for you. We also have cap space." It's never been said. Never will be said. Because good teams don't care about that. They care about the fact that they have good players. The only teams that talk about cap space are the bad ones. And they're bad because they don't have enough good players to spend that cap space on. Okay? I promise you, if the Colts had 6 players worthy of being all-pro selections, then the Colts would not have any cap space. They wouldn't have any. Okay? This idea that cap space is a good thing is just something sold to the fans of bad teams. That's all it is, right? It's just like, hey, here's a little bit of hope. You've got some cap space. Maybe you'll spend money in the offseason. You probably won't because you're bad. But, here's just like a little sliver of hope for you to hold on to going forward. So that is at the top of our list, cap space. That is at the top of our Top 10 Tuesday list for buzzwords that gets players or that gets fans excited about players or a team. The next word on our list, potential. People love this word. Potential is a word that gets fans and, quite frankly, teams excited about young players. In basketball, you hear things like, "Hey, he's 6'7". He's got a 7-foot wingspan and a 40-inch standing vertical, right? Dude's got tons of potential, an absolute freak athlete on the court. But he's not very good yet. But he has all the potential in the world. If you could just get him with the right coach in the right system, and if you can just teach him how to dribble, pass, and shoot, then he'll be great because he's got all the potential. Okay? Saying a player has potential is just a nice way of saying this guy is freakishly athletic, but he's not very good yet. Okay? Like that is the thing. Okay? Potential is just a nice way of saying this kid's not very good yet, but he's a great athlete. That's what people said about Anthony Richardson when he came out of Florida. This guy is 6'4". He's like 250 pounds. He runs like a 4.40. Dude's blazing fast. Has just a rocket launcher attached to his shoulder. I mean, just slings the ball all over the field, right? Filled with potential. But, if he can find a way to stay healthy, which he hasn't done, if he can figure out how to read defenses, which we don't really know if he can do because he hasn't stayed healthy, and if he can throw the ball on time and on target, then he'll be great. Fun fact, if you have a quarterback that is capable of throwing the ball on time and on target, then they're probably going to be good, okay? Whether they have a big arm or not. So, oh, man. Yeah, that gets people going. This player has potential. He might be great. He might not develop. He might end up being terrible. He might end up being a bust. But hey, you guys have the coaches to make him better. Potential, gets people excited. Next is insert veteran name here. Okay? Fans get so excited when their team signs an older player that isn't quite who they were. Okay? Philadelphia 76er fans are pumped, excited, ecstatic over the fact that they just signed Paul George, even though he's 34 years old and he's never won anything in the NBA. And they're like, oh my gosh, we got Paul George, guys. Watch out. Let's just forget the fact that he's aging and that he's past his prime. Let's forget that he hasn't been to a conference finals since he left Indiana. But hey, we got Paul George. Spurs fans went nuts, more than likely, when they signed Chris Paul. They went to YouTube. They typed in Chris Paul highlights, and stuff from like 2007 showed up, and they're like, oh man, this guy's so good. Let's just ignore the fact that was 17 years ago, and he's going to turn 40 years old this year. They're like, oh man, we got Chris Paul. Watch out now. Wemby's going to go up a level because of it, even though Chris Paul's just, probably like a really good backup point guard at this point. Like still a good player. Like Paul George is obviously still a good player, but there's this excitement about signing players that aren't exactly who they were. NFL teams are the exact same way. This doesn't just happen in the NBA. I bet Jets fans rejoiced when they signed Tyron Smith, excuse me, right? He played offensive tackle for the Cowboys for forever, right? He's 33 years old now, which is old by NFL offensive tackle standards. And he's like never stayed healthy. He hasn't been healthy these past several years. But hey, Jets fans, you guys got your offensive tackle. He's so good that the Jets were like, we'll give you a 1-year deal. Fans of football teams still get excited when their team signs Julio Jones, even though he's like 80 years old at this point and he's played for like 4 different teams in the last 3 years. Look, guys, if this, veteran player that you're signing was as good as they used to be, then their former teams wouldn't have let them go. Okay? It wouldn't have happened. Right? So insert veteran name here is third on our top 10 Tuesday list for buzzwords / phrases that get fans excited about a player or a team. Next is he's on pace, then ... He's on pace is the best way to get people to tune into any sporting event. Okay? I saw a tweet on Sunday that said that Gunnar Henderson, shortstop for the Baltimore Orioles, he's 23 years old. Saw a tweet on Sunday that said Gunnar Henderson was on pace for the best season by a shortstop ever. I didn't fact check. I didn't fact check. I didn't go look at like Baseball Reference to see like what he was referencing. I didn't read any articles. I was just like, oh, he's on pace. Let me sit down and watch the Orioles play tonight on Sunday Night Baseball. And every time Gunnar Henderson came up to the plate, I was like excited. I was like, let's see if, I don't know what he's on pace to do. I don't know why he's on pace to have the best single season from a shortstop ever. But hey, like I'm going to tune in. And like when he comes up to the plate, I'm going to kind of like sit up a little bit and I'm really going to pay attention. And yeah, he went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. A nice little golden sombrero for the kid. But it didn't matter, though, because the whole he's on pace thing got me to tune in. And it's like this in every single sport. Okay, as soon as people hear about someone being on pace in anything, they tune in. Hey, guys, Peyton Manning is on pace to set the single season touchdown passing record. Oh, I got to watch the Colts every week now. Hey, guys, Anthony Richardson is on pace to play more games than he played last year. That didn't mean much, but still, that's like an exciting thing of like, oh, like we're going to get to see Anthony Richardson play this year. Hey, guys, Tyreek Hill, he's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's single-season receiving yards record. That gets me to a television. Okay, like the last 4 weeks of the season, you're sitting there and you're like counting yards and you're trying to figure out, like, is he going to do it? How many more yards does he need? What does he need to average? And all those things, right? Or, so-and-so is on pace after the first quarter to score 80 points. It's like a Tuesday night. What else are you going to do? So you sit down and you watch it. Hearing so-and-so is on pace to do whatever gets people excited. Anthony Richardson is on pace from his injury to be back before the start of the season. That's exciting. It's like, okay, cool. We're going to have our starting quarterback available to us week 1. We're going to have, our guy available during, training camp, right? He's on pace, gets people excited. It does. First guy in, last guy out. I don't know why, but I feel like this phrase gets people excited about a player. It gets people juiced up. Okay, it gives off this idea that he's just like this hardworking player, and like that's great. Hard work's important. Like seriously, like I've worked really hard at this, and when I played baseball, I worked really hard at that. Hard work, very important. But here's the thing: every professional athlete works hard. Every single one. They would not be professional athletes if they did not work hard. It's like, great, this player shows up 15 minutes earlier than his teammates, and he stays 15 minutes later. Like, in the long run, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Okay, this is just another buzz phrase used to make us like the player more. It's a great PR phrase, right? It's a nice little brand booster. Okay, like seriously, it is. First guy in, last guy out. It makes us like a player more. It's a great buzz phrase for, positive PR. Right, I promise you, if somebody wrote an article about Anthony Richardson or Adonai Mitchell or Leatu Latu, one of these new rookies, they're like, oh man, he's the first guy here every day, and he's the last one to leave. This dude just eats, breathes, and sleeps football. Everyone would immediately be like, I would fall for it. I'd be like, I love this dude. Like if he's working hard, I like him. Right, first guy in, last guy out is always a hit. Next here on the Top 10 Tuesday list of buzzwords / phrases that get fans excited about a player or team. Must-win game. This gets people excited about games. This gets people to tune in. There's there's a narrative attached to it, and because of that, these media companies try to attach it to everything. Okay, I will tune in to ESPN pregame shows, and it'll be like game 1 of an NBA series or game 1 of an NHL series. Game 1, so it's 0-0. And they'll ask the question of like, is this a must-win game for the home team or whatever? And the answer is no, because it's game 1, okay? They just want to pose that question so that they can draw more eyes. Okay, it is a buzz phrase that gets people to tune into games. It's a buzz phrase that gets people excited about these games, right? Must-win game, it gets thrown out all the time. It's like, hey, your team's down 2-1. Is this a must-win game? It's like, no, because if we lose and we go down 3-1, like we still have to lose again. So I would say no. Like it's not really a must-win game until the opponent has 3 wins. Like that's kind of how must-win works. It's a math question, right? So must-win game. It's another buzz phrase that gets people excited about a game. Next on the list, anything about a blueprint. Let me explain this one. One of my favorite things is when the prominent, dominant team in whatever league, okay, for example, the Chiefs. One of my favorite things is when the Chiefs will beat someone in a playoff game, but they'll only win by like 3. And the next day, the narrative is that whoever they beat gave the other teams the blueprint, okay? And then the Chiefs go out and they crush whoever they play next. And it's like, oh, that was the blueprint? Your quarterback threw for 450 yards. That's the blueprint. Yeah, good luck doing that again. Okay. Or if the Chiefs lose, the team that apparently provided the blueprint will brag like their team won. It's really funny. It's like I don't know what it is, but when a losing team apparently provides a blueprint and they lose, they're immensely proud of it. They're like, "Hey guys, we didn't lose, but you guys are welcome. We gave you guys the blueprint on how to win." My question is, if you have the blueprint, then why didn't you win? Like the whole blueprint thing is just another buzz phrase that gives fans something to be happy about after their favorite team lost to a team that's better than them. Okay, that's what the whole blueprint thing is. People get so excited about it. I don't know why. Like your team lost. I feel like you shouldn't be very happy about that. But hey, I I digress. Whatever you want to be happy about, man. Next here on this top 10 Tuesday list of buzzwords/phrases that gets fans excited about a player or team. This player has all the tools. The tools conversation is always interesting. Okay, like the tools thing is a little bit different from potential. I think potential is very like athletic based, where tools is a little more mental. Okay, so like for example, like this new hot baseball prospect gets called up. The like one of the first things you hear is, "Oh, this is a four tool guy out of five. He's a four tool guy. He can run. He can hit for power. He plays defense at a high level, and he's got just an awesome arm. He's throwing like 105 off of a crow hop from left field or whatever. You're like, oh, this guy's a four tooled guy. Let's go. Like I'm excited, right? Like that means he should be good. And then you sit back and it's like 200 through like 13 games, and all the excitement that the fans had about this new hot prospect is just gone. You're sitting around with your buddies, drinking some moondrops, and you're like, guys, I thought, like, I thought this guy could like hit for power. Like, I thought he was going to hit a whole bunch of home runs. And then the well-informed guy who cares way too much about his favorite baseball team's farm system says something along the lines of like, he's capable of hitting home runs. Like if he hits it, like he crushes it. He just doesn't hit it very often. And then you and all your buddies, and you just kind of like sulk and you just think about how disappointing this new prospect is going to be because you're 13 games deep. He's supposed to be this awesome power hitter, and yet he can't hit. This guy's got a lot of tools. This guy has all the tools. Yeah, like he has all the tools, but he's not using them. So that is next on the list of top 10 Tuesday buzzwords/phrases that get fans excited about a player or team. Two more, I think. Yeah, two more here on the list. He has a lot of upside. This is more of like a fit later down the road kind of thing. People will say this player has a lot of upside when it's a young player on like their second team who didn't quite pan out. For example, let's say that the Pacers trade away Jarris Walker in like 4 years. Okay, like he doesn't wind up developing. 3 years down the road, the Clippers call the Pacers and they're like, "Hey, we want Jarris Walker. We'll give you a second round pick in return." And the Pacers are like, "Okay, that sounds good." And then the Clippers fans will all be like, "I know he didn't pan out in Indiana, but he's got a lot of upsides. Like he's big, he's pretty athletic. Like he was good in college. Like his G League numbers are really good. Like the phrase he has a lot of upside is like one step down from he has potential. Like as of right now, Jarris Walker has potential, but if he doesn't develop into the guy that the Pacers think he's going to, and he ends up playing, for like the Hornets or whoever in a few years, the phrase will no longer be he has a lot of potential. The phrase will be he has a lot of upside. Okay, so that is one that gets thrown out a lot. And then the last one is he has something to prove. I think people fall for this narrative all the time. This is the last one on my top 10 Tuesday buzzwords/phrases that get fans excited about a player or team. He has something to prove. I am willingly falling for this as we speak. Listeners to the show know I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. Because of that, I am currently driving the Klay Thompson has something to prove train. Okay, it's my train, and I'm driving it until the tracks are gone. Okay, I'm not getting off of it. It's just another way to get excited about an older player that's changing teams. Okay, like if Klay Thompson hadn't been as bad as he was these last 2 years, then no one would be talking about a revenge tour. Okay, nobody would be talking about, yeah, he was bad these last 2 years, but he's got something to prove leaving Golden State. Here's the thing: if he was still a great two-way player, the way he was, pre ACL and Achilles tear or not playing a game for nearly 1,000 days, no one would be talking about him like this. They would just say the Mavericks signed another good player, and then we would all move on. But no. Klay Thompson has something to prove, and that excites people. So that is my top 10 Tuesday list for buzzwords/phrases that get fans excited about a player or team. I'll probably do the list again later in the show in the 11 o'clock hour. So come back for that. When we come back here in 4 minutes, though, I am not a father yet, but one day I will be. And I have made an executive decision. I have not talked to my wife about this, but when we have a child, this is going into effect immediately. I'm going to tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Already did top 10 Tuesday. Going to do it again today, though, because the list is it's so much fun. Before we came to break, I mentioned that I made an executive decision. I've not consulted my wife on this. It doesn't matter, though. This is what we're doing when we have kids at some point down the road. Jayson Tatum yesterday signed a 5-year, $315 million deal. That being said, as soon as that child comes out of the womb, I am putting a basketball in his hands immediately. Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum is going to make $63 million a year over the next 5 years on average. That's absurd. That is an insane amount of money. Okay, and if there are any other young dads out there listening, if there are any young children out there listening, pick up a basketball. If you're a dad, get your kid to pick up a basketball and do whatever you can to ensure that they become a good shooter, right? Because if you can't shoot the ball at this point, you cannot play in the NBA, okay? Everybody should be trying to get their kid to go play in the league because they're giving out $63 million a year to players like Jayson Tatum, who's probably like the 6th or 7th best player in the world, which is pretty good. But he's not in that elite top tier. And guess what? The salary cap only going up, which means these guys are only going to be getting paid more and more. Okay, so when I have a kid, I'm putting a basketball in his hands immediately. Immediately. All right, whether my wife likes it or not, right? We're playing basketball. That decision has been made. From there, I will then hope that my kid grows to be 6'4" and semi-athletic. We've got pretty good genes, okay? My wife's side of the family, they're all decently tall. I've got some tall people on my side, not as many, right? But like my youngest brother, he's at least 6 feet tall. He might be 6'1". I don't know. So like there's some hope there, okay? For my kid to grow, be like 6'4", be like semi-athletic. Like you don't have to have like a 40-inch vertical, but if you can just move well laterally and shoot the ball, then you can be JJ Redick, which is great. Like who wouldn't want to be JJ Redick? Like you play in the league for 15 years. You never take any of the blame because you're just kind of this role player. Like you still make pretty decent money, right? Like who wouldn't want to be JJ Redick? Be 6'4", be semi-athletic and shoot the ball great, right? If you do that, you can play in the league for 15 years. You can then go on to have, like a successful media career for a few years. And then after that, you can become an underqualified head coach for the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that sounds like a great life. I would love to be JJ Redick. That sounds great. I just need to grow like 8 inches. That's feasible at the age of 24. So yeah, that's the way to do it. Okay. Teach your kid how to play basketball. Don't teach your kid how to play football. NFL players, despite it being the most popular league in America, despite football being the most popular sport in America, they don't sniff the amount of money that these NBA players make. They don't sniff it unless you play quarterback. Quarterbacks, very well compensated. Everybody else, though, no. You were not compensated probably as much as you should be. Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the NFL. Justin Jefferson is also the highest paid. Justin Jefferson is the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. Justin Jefferson is an elite football player. Okay, he is. If Justin Jefferson's salary, if Justin Jefferson was in the NBA making the exact same amount of money that he's making now, about $35 million a year, Justin Jefferson, once again, the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL, would be the 41st highest paid player in the NBA, which is nuts. Nuts. You know what's even crazier? Ben Simmons. Yeah, you guys remember that guy, number 1 pick out of LSU, had like a great first 4 or 5 years in the league. Something happened. He forgot how to shoot the ball. Yeah, that guy, makes more money than Justin Jefferson. Ben Simmons, a player that never plays. Okay, he played like 15 games last year and then was like, mental health stuff. Sorry, guys. Can't play. My back as well. It hurts. Seriously, that guy makes more money than Justin Jefferson. The highest the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL makes less money than Ben Simmons, a guy who sits at the end of the Brooklyn Nets, one of the worst teams in basketball. Yeah, he sits at the end of their bench and never plays. He just shows up in like Gucci clothing and has a great time. That guy makes more money than Justin Jefferson. Once again, if you're young and you're having kids, make sure they play basketball. Okay? Make sure they play basketball. They're going to make way more money. The other thing, if you play in the NBA, you can take a night off whenever you want. It's really nice. Like you get unlimited PTO. It's great. If you play in the NFL, you have to play every Sunday. And you have to play every practice during the week because every game matters and you're fighting for the playoffs and all those things. It's way more taxing on your body. You get beat up every single week. But if you get your kid to play in the NBA, it's like, hey man, do you want to take a week off? And you're like, yeah, that sounds great. You can take a week off whenever you want and still make more money than these NFL players. Right? NBA players are also just more popular. They just are. Like LeBron James is the most followed athlete in the world. Part of that is because basketball is a global sport, whereas the NFL is not. The NFL is just here in America. They're doing their best to globalize it. They're having some success, but it's still not to the level that the NBA is. And NBA players, because of that, like they get more endorsement deals. Like they do. I see Charles Barkley, who hadn't played in the league in forever. Every time I turn on my TV, I see Shaquille O'Neal, a guy who hasn't played in the league in over a decade. I see him on TV every time I turn on my TV. Like NBA players, because you can actually see their faces, they're just more prominent players, which is an added bonus. Once again, kids out there, don't play football, play basketball. There's a lot more money. Okay, you don't get hurt as bad. Okay, like you can walk when you're 70. Okay. And also, like, there's a lot more opportunities to play professionally overseas. Like, I got a buddy, he plays in France, and he's doing very, very well. Okay, like he's got no financial issues whatsoever. Whereas for football, you can play in the NFL or you can play in the CFL. Those are really your only two options. So, my wife and I have not had this conversation yet, but I don't think we have to. I'm gonna sit down and be like, hey, Jayson Tatum's making $63 million a year as an NBA player. I think our kid should play basketball. She's going to be like, well, what if our kid doesn't like basketball? I'm like, well, our kid will eventually like money. And so I feel like his opinion may change when we show him that this guy's making $63 million a year. These NBA guys are getting paid. And should all of them get paid? Probably not. But that's just the way that the league works. They kind of make you use all of your salary cap. So, yeah, it's complicated, but you're basically forced to use it. So everybody's got to pay somebody. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. So moving on, or oh no, break. I have to break. So NBA free agency is always so much fun. I love it because news breaks all the time and you're just kind of like living on a whim. You're like, when is Woj going to tweet again? And then when he does, you're like, oh man, what'd he tweet? And then he's like, story about something that you don't care about. And it's like, oh, that was anticlimactic. But it's to a point where I'm going on vacation next week. So the Real Jonathan Smith Show off the air Monday through Friday next week. My wife was like, when can we go on vacation? And I was like, after NBA free agency's over, which is basically on Friday. And so I'll be out of town next week. So I love it. I'm going to give you my early NBA free agency winners and losers when we come back. Pacers, not on either list, and that is not a bad thing. I'll explain here in about 4 minutes.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's on the radio at 1430 AM, maybe you're listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download on the App Store or the Google Play Store. You can also listen to the Dan Dockett Show there as well. Maybe you're watching on Twitter. Follow us there at Ticket1430. You can follow me while you're there as well, at __ Jonathan Smith. Or maybe you're watching on my favorite platform. Am I allowed to be biased? Is that allowed? It is. On YouTube, go search for Indy Sports Ticket. We should pop up. Subscribe. Tune in to the live stream. Join the chat. It's a great time. One of the students in my small group from Emmanuel just joined the chat. So please be nice to him. Don't say anything too mean about me. Okay. Now, I want to move into free agency, right? And just the NBA offseason and just everything that's kind of transpired, signings, trades. I kind of want to recap it. I want to give you my winners and my losers. Let's start on a positive note. Let's start with the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay. These are my winners. That's why we're starting positively. My winners here, the 76ers. They signed Paul George. Now, I'm not the biggest Paul George fan. Okay, I think he's slightly overrated. He's 34 years old, going to be 35 and not very long. He'll turn 35 in, I think, this next summer. I don't know. He's older, right? He's on the decline. So because of that, I'm not the biggest Paul George fan. With that being said, Paul George was the best player available in this free agency cycle. If you get the best player available, then you are a winner. Okay, Paul George is going to make a lot of money and a reduced role. Who wouldn't love that? Like, hey, man, do you want a demotion? But we're also going to give you a big raise. That sounds like a dream. Less responsibility, more money. Who wouldn't want that? And so, right? And so he gets his money. He gets a lesser role. And the 76ers get the wing that they need, because if you're going to win in the East this year, you better have good wings. Knicks, another winner. They traded for Mikal Bridges. I'll be honest, they paid a pretty hefty price. I would argue that Mikal Bridges probably isn't worth 5 first-round picks and a pick swap. That's a lot to give up. But for the Knicks, he is perfect. He is a Knick already, right? He's joining what are now called the Villanova Knicks, right? He's going to play with OG Anunoby. They're going to be absolute menaces on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, like, they're going to continue to be good. They're going to be able to, I think, match Boston in their ability to put a bunch of great perimeter defenders on the floor while also still having a pretty decent offense. Okay, like Mikal Bridges is really going to elevate a team that was already good. Yes, Isaiah Hartenstein left. You know, did they want that? No, but he's replaceable. Like, you can find big guys that hustle and rebound. You know, they don't grow on trees, but they're pretty common to find. Offensively, they're going to look really similar. A lot of Jalen Brunson, but they also get, you know, an upgrade at that, you know, second scorer spot with Mikal Bridges kind of stepping into being the number 2 as opposed to Julius Randle. So they got better. The Oklahoma City Thunder, congratulations. They now have what I would say is the best roster in basketball. They signed Isaiah Hartenstein. New York loss is Oklahoma City's gain, right? They're adding Hartenstein, who, you know, almost single-handedly fixed the Thunder's biggest issue, a lack of size and a lack of rebounding. He helps them do both of those things. He can also protect the rim. So him and Chet Holmgren playing together is going to be fun and interesting. They can go small. They can go big, putting Chet and Hartenstein on the floor at the same time. It's going to be fun. Holmgren's ability to shoot is really important in that. So the Thunder got a lot better. The Pelicans, I think they're a winner. Okay, they're eventually going to move off of Brandon Ingram, which will be good for them, but they're bringing in DeJounte Murray, like, is a real point guard, which is something that the Pelicans need. Okay, playing Zion Williamson at point guard is not a solution. I would argue it probably created more problems for them than it did answers, but now they're bringing in a real point guard who can create shots, who can play defense, and anytime you bring in a player like that, like, you're a winner. The Nets are also a winner. It's like, Jonathan, the Nets suck, and they just trade away their best player. Why are they a winner? They can now properly rebuild. The Nets have now turned Kevin Durant into 9 first-round picks. They got 4 from the Suns plus Mikal Bridges, and they just traded Mikal Bridges away for 5 more first-round picks. Okay, they also regained control in a trade with Houston of their own 2025 and 2026 first-round picks, which now means that they can tank and they can be bad. And next year's draft is supposed to be pretty good. So they're going to tank and, yeah, like they can actually do like a legitimate rebuild now. Will they do that? Probably not. They're probably going to trade a bunch of these picks away for some superstar that doesn't even want to be in Brooklyn. And then they're going to look around and be like, oh, we suck again. I wonder why that is. It's like, oh, because you weren't patient. Okay, they should wait, use these draft picks. That's what the Thunder have done. And yeah, that's what they should do. It's probably what they won't do, but we will see. I think the Spurs are winners. Bringing in Chris Paul, he's going to help develop Wemby. He's actually going to give him the ball. He's going to teach Stephon Castle how to play point guard because apparently Stephon Castle is a point guard. It's what he worked out as, even though he didn't play point guard at all when he's playing at UConn. That's beside the point. Spurs winners adding Chris Paul. I think the Magic are major winners. I think the Magic are better than the Pacers at this point. They bring in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 3-year deal. So he's going to be there for 3 years. The Magic needed shooting. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope provides that. He can defend, which is great for Orlando because that's kind of their identity. They got a bunch of dudes who can defend. He's a great shooter, 41% from behind the 3-point line. Cuts well. He should make life easier on Paolo and Franz. It's just a guy who can catch and shoot and just provide spacing. Okay, like Magic, they need more shooting, but this was a nice step in the right direction. My losers. Clippers. You lose Paul George and bring back, you don't get anything in return for him, and you also bring back James Harden. So Paul George, who cost the Clippers Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is gone for nothing. But on the bright side, you still get to pay Kawhi Leonard, who's never healthy, and you get to pay James Harden, who's not very good anymore. So congratulations, Clippers. You guys are going to be bad next year. The Warriors are losers for now. There are trade considerations where they may make a move for Lauri Markkanen from the Utah Jazz. That would change things. But look, they lost Klay Thompson for 2 second-round picks. Like they didn't get really anything in return for him, which is kind of an issue. So now, the Warriors are going to try to make the playoffs with only Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins. That doesn't sound very promising. Warriors, dynasty's ending. Never, never pretty. Finally, my last loser, the Nuggets. They lose Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, their best defender, and a guy who just worked well with Jokic and Jamal Murray. Guy who made a lot of threes, cut well for layups, did all those things. Just always kind of knew where to be because he played with those guys for a while. So they lose probably their best role player. Nuggets, maybe they won't be the best team in the West next year. It's probably going to be the Thunder. So because they got better, which is good. So I said beforehand, the Pacers did not make this list, which is cool. Happens sometimes. And that's fine. The Pacers didn't need to be on this list, okay? They are loaded with talent. The Pacers have an insane amount of talent. And it's to a point where it's like, do they have too much talent? Which, some people will tell you can never have too much talent, but I say that you can because they aren't all going to get to play. Okay, this Indiana Pacers roster is absolutely loaded. It's to a point where we have to ask the question, at what point do they start trading players, and who do they trade? And I posed the second part of that question, who do they trade? And I know what everyone's going to say. Everyone's going to nominate Jarris Walker to be traded. The Pacers should not do that, and I would be very surprised if the Pacers moved off of Jarris Walker, considering how young he is. Okay? They don't want to do what the Clippers did. I talked about them not that long ago. The Clippers traded away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George. And they did it before they really knew who or what kind of player Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was going to be. And now the Clippers are sitting there and they're like, yeah, we have Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, we used to have Paul George. Yeah, we have James Harden. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's the 4th best player in the world, and I think that they would rather have him at this point. Okay, they traded him away before they knew what type of player he was going to be. And now they look stupid for it. It's this is the franchise that traded away the now 4th best player in the world. What? Oh, wow. They aren't very smart. and now they're going to sit back and they're going to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander lead the Thunder to places that they've never been. Like there's a real possibility where the Oklahoma City Thunder win an NBA title next year. There's a real possibility where the Oklahoma City Thunder make a Western Conference Finals. Something that the Clippers never did with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Okay? And once again, they traded away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to get Paul George. And in the short term, it seemed like a great idea. Everybody was riding that Clippers bandwagon. Everybody was excited about what the Clippers' future was going to be because you looked at their roster, you're like, oh, they've got something pretty similar to what Boston has now in terms of the idea of their two best players, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, were two guys who could create shots and score the basket, who could create shots and defend. You're like, oh, like those are the two best players? Like that seems like a great thing. And like it in theory it is, but then you don't even make it to the Western Conference Finals, in like a 4 or 5 year period. And all the while, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is in Oklahoma City, just slowly but surely getting better. And I think if you're the Clippers, you would just rather have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now, and instead of the previous 4 years that you had consistently underachieving. So when it comes to the Pacers, they don't want to end up in the same spot. They don't. Because if they were to move Jarris Walker and he turns into an absolute stud, like that's a tough thing to swallow. That's a tough thing to deal with. Like these NBA franchises don't like to give up on players too early. They don't. And so because of that, I would be shocked if the Pacers traded away Jarris Walker or Benedict Mathurin, two guys that they took decently high in the lottery. Okay, those seem like the two young players, along with Halliburton, that the Pacers want to build around for the long term. Obviously, in the short term, it's Siakam, it's Halliburton, and all these other guys. But long term, Halliburton, Mathurin, Walker, those kind of seem like the three guys. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward. They have also been reported, the Pacers have also been reported in having interest in Lauri Markkanen, but they're slow to part ways with all this young talent because they have a lot of it. Like they've stockpiled, like the roster is good. And they're sitting there and it's like, geez, like who do we give up? Because the Jazz are rebuilding. Like they don't want TJ McConnell. They want young dudes that can score, and they want picks. So when it comes to the Pacers, what are they going to do? What is Kevin Pritchard going to do? Who's he going to move out? Or maybe he just doesn't do anything. Maybe they take this next year. They see what they have. They really invest in Jarris Walker. They figure out what he's going to be. But here's the thing. If they put him on the floor and he's not as good, then his value goes down. And just a lot of things to think about for the Pacers and their future. Okay. Last thing before we head to the top of the hour, I think I'm supposed to have a guest on at 11 from Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue. We're going to talk 4th of July. What are you putting on the grill? What's the best way to make ribs? All those things. What are you eating? All that fun stuff with someone from Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue, hopefully coming up here in about 7 minutes or so. Before we go to that, though, the Indiana Fever do play tonight. Like it's just a rule. I have to mention Caitlin Clark and the Fever every day on the show because she's fascinating and people are intrigued by what she's doing. So they're going on the road tonight. They're playing against the Las Vegas Aces, who are really good. Aja Wilson, their center, is probably going to win MVP. She's averaging 27 points and like 13 rebounds, something just absurd like that. So, yeah, the Aces are good. So they're playing them tonight on the road. They're not playing till like 9:30. So I'll probably be in bed. But, if you want to stay up and watch that, feel free. Caitlin Clark has really kind of figured things out. If the playoffs started today, the Fever would have the 8 seed. They're only half a game back of the 7 seed. They're only, a game and a half back of the 6 seed. So, like they've figured things out. They have the 3rd best record in the WNBA in the month of June. And so, like, things are kind of trending in the right direction for the Fever. Tough game tonight. We're going to get to see how this young Fever team looks matched up against one of the better teams in the league. They've got a pretty tough next 5 games. The Aces tonight, the Liberty of New York, who are the 2 seed, the Mystics, who are pretty bad, the Mercury, who even though they beat are still like that's still a good team. And then at the Lynx, who were I believe the 3 seed. And then I mean like this is like it's not an easy schedule the rest of the way. So or at least in the near future, it's not an easy schedule. So be nice if they could steal one of these. Need to go at least 2-3 in this stretch. Be nice if they could go 3-2. Like that'd be a real win because that would mean that they beat either the Liberty, the Aces, or the Storm. 3 of the best teams in the WNBA. Hoping to have my guy Tony East on tomorrow to talk a little bit more about the Fever. I know Lynn Dunn is going to join Dan's show today at 1:00. So that should be good if you want to hear her thoughts on everything going on with the Fever. They're in Vegas tonight, playing at 9:30. Once again, if you want to stay up and watch that. Coming up in 5 minutes, hopefully someone from Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue. I think they're calling in. They may be coming in. I hope they come in because usually when they come in, they bring food, which sounds kind of nice right now. So that's hopefully coming your way here in about 5 minutes.
Eating, working, living pain-free. These are a few of the things many of us take for granted. Yet for many United States military veterans, finding and affording oral health care is a challenge. Dental Lifeline Network is looking for dentists who can change this. Will you volunteer to help people like Richard, a U.S. naval veteran who suffered severe PTSD after his service? He was left homeless for a period of time and his oral and overall health are suffering. Because of congressional limitations, the VA can't provide the dental help he needs. Through our Will You See One Vet program, we focus on helping U.S. military veterans like Richard. Now we are seeking more general dentists and specialists to donate treatment to at least one veteran with special needs. When you volunteer with DLN's program to see one vet, we handle the details so you can focus on the care. If you are a dentist or know a dentist, please share this message and help us make a difference in the life of a veteran in need. Visit willyouseeonevet.org to learn more. That's willyouseeonevet.org.
I can't believe he found them.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Just having an absolute blast today. We're having fun because that's what radio should be. It should be fun. It should be exciting. 4th of July, quickly approaching. It's going to be here on Thursday. Can't wait for it. If you need help with food, Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue, that's the place to go. 5502 Emerson Way in Indianapolis. They've brought their food in here before. It's fantastic. Their food's so good. It was the perfect day. It was a Friday, and Dan couldn't eat meat on Friday for some reason, and so I got to eat all of it, and it was fantastic. It was great. Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue. It's going to be good. There are just a lot of things going on in July. Dan's golf outing coming up here in it's like a week and a half away. That sounds right. So that'll be good. That'll be fun. I know there was a plan in place for me to do a remote show out there. We'll see if that ends up happening or not. I should probably talk to my boss about that. But yeah, a lot of things going on in the month of July. It's fun. It's exciting. 4th of July on Thursday. Yeah, can't wait for it. Should be a good time. I have no idea what my wife and I are doing, but we will figure it out. Now, I want to go back to Top 10 Tuesday because it's an absolute blast. It's one of my favorite ones that I've done. I feel like I say this every time I do one. Every time I do a Top 10 Tuesday, I say, guys, I think this is one of my favorites. So this is Top 10 Tuesday, buzzwords / phrases that get fans excited about a player or a team. So we have to start off with the classic one, the one that we bring up here all the time on Indy Sports Ticket, all the time on 1430 AM. Okay? This is cap space. Okay? People love this word. Okay? Everyone that listens to this station knows that there are plenty of Colts fans and really just fans of bad teams in general. I'd be willing to bet that this is brought up in every market. There are plenty of fans out there that fall for the saying, it's all right, guys. We have cap space. Have you ever noticed that good teams never say this? Like the Chiefs have never won a Super Bowl and been like, hey guys, good news. We have cap space next season. You know, the good news isn't that we have Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or Andy Reid as our head coach or our defense is really good or, you know, like the good news isn't that they have the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. No, the good news is they have cap space. Okay, and the reason why we never hear teams like the Chiefs say anything like that is pretty simply because they don't have cap space. Okay, they've spent it all on their good players. Good teams never say, it's all right, guys, we have cap space. They don't. The Colts do right now because they aren't very good. Okay, that's the only explanation for it. Right? When the Colts were good in the days of Peyton Manning, did you hear people parading around excitedly saying that the Colts have cap space? No, you didn't. Okay, the only teams that talk about cap space are the bad ones. And they're bad because they don't have enough good players to spend the cap space on. Okay, the Colts had 6 guys worthy of being like all pro selections, I promise you, the Colts would not have cap space. They wouldn't. And guess what? Nobody would care. Okay, good teams don't go into the offseason like, oh man, we just went 14-3, but we don't have any cap space. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. And if the Colts were good and they were winning, 12, 13, 14 games a year, making it to the AFC Championship game consistently, they wouldn't be like, hey guys, bad news. I know we just won a whole bunch of games, but we don't have any cap space. Okay, the idea of cap space is just something sold to the fans of bad teams so that they can have a little bit of hope. That's all that it is. It's all that cap space is there for, and it undoubtedly has to top the list on today's Top 10 Tuesday, buzzwords/phrases that get fans excited about a player or team. Next on the list, potential. Potential is a word that gets fans and teams, like general managers, coaches, like this word potential gets them excited as well about young players. In basketball, you hear things like, hey, this guy right here, freshman, he's 19, coming out of who cares university. He's 6'7". He's got a 7-foot wingspan. Okay, and he's got a 40-inch standing vertical. Okay, like the dude is just a sick athlete. He's got all the potential in the world. He's not very good yet, but he could be at some point. If you could just teach him how to dribble, pass, and shoot, he's going to be a great player. Okay, like potential, who cares? Okay, saying a player has potential is a nice way of saying he's not very good yet, right? It's like, hey, this guy's not very good, but he's a sick athlete, right? Like that's what people said about Anthony Richardson coming out of Florida. It's like, hey, guys, this dude coming out of Florida who can't stay healthy, ignore that part. He's 6'4", like 270 pounds. Not really. He's blazing fast. He runs like a 4.4, and he's got a huge arm. Like he can throw it, like 100 yards in the air. Like the dude's sick. If he can just find a way to stay healthy, read a defense, throw the ball on time and on target, then he'll be great. If you can just teach him to do all those really important things, he's going to be pretty amazing. So potential, just another way to get people excited about new players. Okay, that's all that it is. The next on my list is insert veteran name here. Fans get excited, overly juiced, super pumped up when their team signs like an older veteran. They just do. For example, Philadelphia 76er fans are pumped over the fact that they just signed Paul George, even though he's 34 years old. And he's never won anything in the NBA. Okay, they're going back. They're watching highlights from like a decade ago of when he played with the Pacers. And like, oh my gosh, we got this guy, or we're going to pair this guy with Maxey and Embiid. And they're watching, 25-year-old Paul George just go absolutely nuts in a Pacers uniform. It's like, oh, wow, we're going to be good. But it's like, no, this guy's 34. It's not the same guy. I promise you if he was, he would still be playing for the Clippers. When it comes to the Spurs fans are probably pumped about Chris Paul. Even though he's probably a backup point guard now, they're going back. They're watching old clips from like 2008. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we got this guy. We're gonna pair this guy with Wemby." It's like, yeah, like you got that guy, just not that version. Okay, he's 40 years old now, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like this is just another way that fans get excited. It's like, oh, we got this player that's washed up now, but he used to be pretty good. So maybe he can have a career resurgence at the age of 40. Wouldn't that be awesome? The NFL, it's the exact same way. I bet Jets fans got over the top excited. I bet they rejoiced. They shouted to the rooftops when they signed Tyron Smith, even though he's a 33-year-old offensive tackle who hasn't been able to stay healthy over these past few seasons for Dallas. Okay, NFL fans, like they still get excited when their favorite team signs Julio Jones, even though he's 80 years old. Look, if these players that used to be great, if they were still great, if they were still good, then their former teams wouldn't have let them go. They wouldn't have. Right, that's just the reality of it. Believe it or not, when teams have good players, they actually do what they can to make sure that they don't leave. And that's in every sport. It's pretty miraculous. Next on my top 10 Tuesday list of the best buzzwords / phrases that get fans excited about a player or team. Next on the list, he's on pace. He's on pace, guys. It's the best way to get people to watch games. I fell victim to this statement not that many days ago. I'm hanging out. It's Sunday after church. My wife is asleep. I'm on Twitter scrolling through, and I see this tweet. And it said that Gunnar Henderson, starting shortstop for the Baltimore Orioles. This tweet said Gunnar Henderson is on pace to have the best season by a shortstop ever. Okay, he was on like a 36-game on base streak, like was hitting bombs. He's a fantastic defender. And so I'm like, okay, dude's on pace to do something amazing. I don't know what that amazing thing is. I don't know why he's on pace to have the best season ever by a shortstop, but I want to watch that. So I'm hanging out. Sunday Night Baseball comes on. Orioles Rangers. I'm excited to watch Gunnar Henderson. I'm like, this is gonna be great. 0 for 4, 4 strikeouts. That was anticlimactic. It didn't matter though, because that phrase, he's on pace, got me excited, got me to sit on my couch and like really watch a baseball game for the first time this year, right? Like I'll put baseball games on in the background and like do prep work, read, do whatever while it's on. But for the most part, like that's how I consume baseball right now. When we get to October, that'll obviously change. But yeah, like it didn't matter. That phrase, he's on pace, got me to tune into the game. Like as soon as people hear about anyone being on pace for anything, they tune in. Like these last 2 years, at the end of the season, we hear Tyreek Hill is on pace to break Calvin Johnson's single season receiving yards record. Okay, like it seems like we hear that every year now. And whenever we hear it, I'm like, okay, I need to watch this. So I sit down and I'm like, I'm watching the Dolphins today because I want to see if Tyreek Hill can continue on this pace to break Calvin Johnson's single season receiving yards record. Okay, like if we're watching the Colts this year and you hear Adonai Mitchell is on pace to break Puka Nakua's single season receiving yards record, then you're gonna be like, oh, I need to watch that, and you will, right? That phrase, he's on pace, gets all of us to a television. It does. So and so is on pace after the first quarter, score 80 points. That gets me to change the channel because it's Tuesday night and there's nothing going on, and I guess I'll watch the Hawks play the Nets if Trae Young's potentially going to score 80, right? That phrase, he's on pace, gets us excited about something that we haven't seen before. Because when you hear that phrase, he's on pace, it's usually followed by he's on pace to break this record. He's on pace to score this many points. He's on pace to hit this many home runs. And it's exciting, and it gets us to a TV. The next phrase that gets people excited. First guy in, last guy out. I don't know why, but people love it when they hear this about a player. Okay, it gives this idea that he's just this hardworking, hard-nosed dude who's like in the gym or, on the field grinding, doing all these things. And it's like, yeah, this guy knows that hard work is important. Well, guess what? All of these players work hard, and they all know that hard work is important. They wouldn't be professional athletes if they didn't work hard and if they didn't understand the importance of it. Okay, it's like, oh, this player shows up 15 minutes earlier than his teammates. I like this guy. Oh, wait, Andy stays 15 minutes later? Oh, my gosh. Put him in the Hall of Fame. I like this guy. Even though in the long run, like it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Right? This is just a buzz phrase to make us like players more. Like it's the ultimate PR move. Okay? Like if I played professional sports or if I represented someone who played professional sports and something bad happened, I'd be like, hey, man, we're going to do a press conference. To open the press conference, I want you to say that from here on out, you're going to be the first guy in, last one out. And then for the first week after, for all the practices, show up early and stay late. All right? Like you don't have to work. Just stay a little bit later, okay? And people will see it, and you will then be in the good graces of the people you're around once again. Next on my list for Top 10 Tuesday, buzzwords / phrases that get fans excited about players or a team. Must-win game. Anytime any media outlet can attach this to a game, they do. Okay, they attach it to as many games as possible. Okay, I've tuned in to so many ESPN pregame shows for the NBA playoffs or for the NHL playoffs, and it'll be game one of a series, and they have the audacity to ask this stupid question. It's like, hey guys, it's game one, series tied 0-0. is this a must-win game? The answer is no. It's like, no, it's not. Why are you even asking me this question? This is a stupid question. It's game one. Okay, can we just watch and then maybe not ask this question at all? Because it's really not a must-win game until, your opponent has 3 wins and they need one more to eliminate you. Okay? Like they just want to pose this question and put it on social media so that it draws more eyes. That's all that must-win game does. Okay? It's this buzz phrase that gets people to tune into games. That's all that it is. Next here on my list for buzzwords / phrases that get fans excited about a player or team. Anything about a blueprint. Anything about a blueprint. Okay? Like one of my favorite things in sports is when the Chiefs will play, the Browns in the playoffs, right? And they only beat the Browns by 3. And then the next day, you turn on, whatever show, except for this one because I'm not going to do that. You turn on whatever show, and the narrative's that, the Chiefs beat the Browns by 3. Did the Browns give everyone else the blueprint? That's what people say. It's like, oh, like they narrowly won. They must have figured something out. It's like, no, the Chiefs just didn't play their best. And then the Chiefs go out in their next game and they just crush their opponent. Or if they do lose their next game, doesn't matter if whoever beats the Chiefs next, did it in a similar fashion as to which the Browns played them close. Doesn't matter. Okay. It's like, oh, the Browns provided the blueprint. Right. And then from there, all the fans of the team that apparently provided the blueprint will brag like their team just won. I don't know what it is. But when a losing team provides a blueprint and they lose, they are immensely proud of it. They're like, hey, guys, we may not have won, but we told everybody else how to beat them. Here's my question. If you have the blueprint, then, shouldn't you win? If you have the blueprint, if you have, the code, so to speak, on how to beat whoever, then you should probably win. It's like why are you happy about that? Why are you happy about losing? Because you provided the blueprint? Oh, okay. That's great. Right? This whole thing about providing a blueprint to beat, the other team, the dynasty, whatever, it's just another buzz phrase to give fans something to be happy about after they lose to a team that's simply better than they are. Okay? Next on my list here, this player has all the tools. The tools conversation is always interesting. I feel like it reigns in the world of baseball more than anywhere else because that's what they talk about with prospects. It's like, oh, this is a 4-tool prospect. This is a 5-tool guy right here, right? And it gets people excited. Like this new hot baseball prospect gets called up, and the first thing you hear is he's a 4-tool guy. He's got 4 tools. He can run. He can hit for power. He's a great defender. And he's got a rocket launcher of an arm, okay? He throws the ball 108 miles an hour off of a crow hop from center field, okay? Like the dude can just sling it, checks all the boxes except for the contact part of hitting. And then you sit back and he hits 200 through 13 games. And all the excitement that the fans had is just gone. It's like, oh, okay, maybe this guy's not very good. And then, you're sitting around with your buddies and you're talking about the Cubs, and you're like, hey guys, I thought this guy was supposed to hit a lot of home runs. I thought this was a big power hitting first baseman or whatever. And then your well-informed guy who or buddy who cares way too much about his favorite baseball team's farm system says something along the lines of, man, he's capable of hitting home runs. He is, if he makes contact, he crushes it. He just doesn't hit the ball very often. And then all your buddies and you sulk and you just think about how disappointing this new prospect is going to be and how you got over the top excited for nothing. So that's the next thing. Next on my top 10 Tuesday list of my favorite buzzwords / phrases that get fans way too excited about a player or team is this guy has a lot of upside. Okay. This is more of an older young player kind of thing. When people say this player has a lot of upside, it's usually when a younger player is on their second team who didn't quite pan out on their first team. For example, if the Pacers traded Jarris Walker, who was the number 8 overall pick last year, if they traded him, in 2 years, right? He doesn't wind up developing, and the Pacers, they call the Clippers and they're like, hey guys, do you guys want Jarris Walker? If you send us a 2nd round pick, we will give him to you. And the Clippers are like, yeah, sure, why not? We'll take a flyer on this kid. And then Clippers fans, this is a terrible example because the Clippers don't have fans, but bear with me here. Clippers fans would be like, I know he didn't pan out in Indiana, but he's like 6'8". He's got like a 7'2" wingspan. Like the dude's athletic. Like he's got a lot of upside. If we can just figure it out. Like as long as Jarris Walker's here, he has potential. But if he gets traded somewhere else, he no longer has potential. He now has a lot of upside. It's like one step down from saying that a player has potential, which is another buzzword on today's Top 10 Tuesday, buzzword/phrases that get fans excited about a player or team list. Last one here. This is a good one. I'm falling for this one right now. I'm willingly falling for this one right now. He has something to prove. Okay. We love the idea of like a revenge tour or like an older player trying to make a comeback. This guy, or even a coach, like this guy has something to prove. For example, John Calipari at Arkansas. That's the thing. He's got something to prove. He's got to prove he can't win at Kentucky, even though he won at UMass and Memphis before he showed up at Kentucky. But he still has something to prove. And look, like I said, I'm falling for this as we speak. I'm in the driver's seat of the Klay Thompson has something to prove train. Okay, I'm in the driver's seat of the Klay Thompson revenge tour bus. Okay, like that's my train, that's my bus. I'm driving them until there's no more road, there's no more tracks. Driving it until the wheels fall off. Okay, and this whole he has something to prove, or the whole he's on a revenge tour, like those things, like that's just phrases, buzzwords that get people excited. Okay, that's all that it is. It's just another way to get people excited about an older player that's changing teams. Okay, if Klay Thompson had been, like one of the three best two-way players in the NBA, like he was before the ACL and the Achilles tears, then no one would be talking about any sort of revenge tour. Nobody would be talking about any sort of he has something to prove stuff because the Warriors just would have kept him. They would have. Okay, like if he was still a great two-way player, and he did leave the Warriors for whatever reason, then we wouldn't be talking about him like this. We would just be like, oh, the Mavericks added a good player. Great for them. And then we would move on. But no, now it's like revenge tour. He's been bad these last 2 years. Maybe he can be better now. I don't know. But buzz phrase just to get people excited about that new player that wasn't deemed good enough to stay on their former team. Now, I'm married. Been married like 10 months. It's pretty great. I like being married, but I've learned in a short amount of time, sometimes you have to make executive decisions, right? You have to not console your wife and just be like, I'm buying this or I'm doing this. If she gets upset, I'll just ask for forgiveness and we'll be okay. I've made an executive decision as of yesterday on something that Amelia and I are going to do with our first son. It's non-negotiable. We're 1,000% doing it. I'm going to tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Maybe that's on 1430 AM. You're driving around listening to the show. That is greatly appreciated. Maybe you're watching on Twitter at Ticket1430. You can follow us there if you want to watch the live stream there. Maybe you're watching or listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Maybe you're watching on YouTube, right? Where, you're active, you're in the chat, which is just a great place with several great people. So if you're looking for, I guess, a more unique way to enjoy the Real Jonathan Smith Show, head over to YouTube, search for us in Indy's Sports Ticket. And from there, join the chat. A lot of great people in there. I was just posed the question, from John M on YouTube, will the NFL or NBA have the first $100 million annual contract for a player? It's the NBA, undoubtedly. Okay, probably going to happen. I think they're projecting for Luka Doncic to sign the first one. I think he's up for an extension either this year or next year. So, because the cap is going to keep going up. They just signed a new TV deal, which means the cap will take a major leap here at some point, and that'll be when that first $100 million contract is signed. Probably going to be Luka playing for the Mavs, which leads me into the executive decision that I have decided to make for me and my wife for when we have children. Jayson Tatum signed a 5-year, $315 million deal yesterday. That, my friends, that's a lot of money. Okay, that is $63 million a year. So because of that, I've made this executive decision that my kids will play basketball. Okay, I am putting a basketball in my son's hands as soon as possible. Okay, like when he comes out of the womb, basketball. Okay, I don't care if the ball's bigger than him. We're putting it in his hands. He will carry it around for forever. Okay, Jayson Tatum, $63 million a year for the next 5 years. Isn't it? That's an insane amount of money. Okay, and if there's any young dads out there listening, any kids out there listening, go pick up a basketball and do whatever you can to ensure that you can play in the NBA, because everybody's getting paid. Okay, those guys playing in the NBA are making a lot of money. And I think once I explain this to my wife, she'll be like, okay, yeah, all of our kids playing basketball. And then she'll be like, well, Jonathan, what if they don't like basketball? I'm like, well, I'm sure they would like to make, $50 million a year as like a role player, as like the ninth guy on the bench. I'm sure that they would really enjoy that. So, that'll I'm kidding, by the way. Like, if there's parents out there like, Jonathan, you're an idiot. I know, but kidding, jokes. But seriously, though, like if you have a kid and you teach them how to shoot the basketball, right? And they're like semi-athletic, right? Like they're semi-athletic, they like move well laterally. They've got like a 35-inch vertical or whatever. They're, like I said, they're semi-athletic. If they're that, and they can shoot the ball and they're like 6'4", then you can play in the NBA. You can just, be a sharpshooter off the bench, big time, like catch and shoot guy. Like those guys, they can make a lot of money. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope just signed a 3-year, $66 million deal. Like he's a role player. He's going to make $22 million a year. Like that's insane. So if you're 6'4", semi-athletic, and you can shoot, then you can be JJ Redick, which is great, which means that you can potentially play in the NBA for 15 years. And then after that, you can go join the media. You can have a pretty decent media career for a few years, put together some podcasts, call some NBA games. Like that's a great life. And then once you're done with that, you can then become an underqualified head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Like I think that'd be cool. That sounds like a great life. Seriously, it does. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. And like, once again, this whole thing on, basketball, and like, that's like, if you want to make money, like that's what you should play. Like you should. Like when we look at the NFL, like NFL players, despite it being the most popular league in America, they don't make as much money as NBA players. They don't. Quarterbacks kind of do, but like the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL don't make as much money as the highest paid NBA players. They don't. And then when you look at the non-quarterbacks, I mean, there's a major discrepancy. Like Justin Jefferson is the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. Justin Jefferson, if he played in the NBA and he had the exact same contract, he would be the 41st highest paid NBA player. 41st. That means there's 40 players making more money in the NBA than Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the NFL. Like that's pretty insane to me. It's pretty absurd. Okay, especially when you consider the fact that Ben Simmons makes more money than him. Ben Simmons, a player that never plays. Okay, a player that sits at the end of the bench in like weird outfits that probably cost a lot of money. That guy makes more money than Justin Jefferson, the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. That's absurd. Like the money in the NBA is insane. Okay. And that's the other thing that's nice. Like if, it's like basketball or football, dad, basketball, because if you want to, you can take a night off whenever you want. Okay. If you play in the NFL, you're playing every Sunday. And guess what? You're playing at every practice. And when you're done after your like 8-year career, you're barely going to be able to walk. Okay. Like, is that the life you want? Or do you want to go play in the NBA? Play when you want, sit out when you want, play for 15 years instead of 8 and still be able to walk when you're done. Like, what you want that life or do you want this NFL life? Seriously. I mean, like, I don't think that the decision is very hard. It's not. You're right. I'm getting YouTube comments about the idea of making my kid play basketball for just because of money. I'm not going to do that, guys. I was kidding. Sarcasm. And so, but seriously, like this NBA money is absolutely insane. And the other thing is, like the gear in the NBA is less, right? So like you're not walking around in a helmet, you're not walking around in shoulder pads. Like people can see your face really clearly in the NBA, which I think leads to them being bigger stars. Like it does. Like every time I turn on my TV, I see Charles Barkley and Shaq in some sort of commercial, and that's and they haven't played in the league in over a decade. And I think it speaks to just the stardom that comes from playing in the NBA. And part of it is because like it's obviously popular here in America, but like globally, it is way more popular than football, which is pretty much an American sport. I know it's growing, and like they're playing a game in Brazil and another game in London, and they're supposed to play a game in Mexico City at one point, and that didn't happen. But it's just been a really interesting thing. And so like because of that, like they're making more money in these endorsement deals, in these which is just an added bonus. So like kids, don't play football, play basketball if you can. A lot more money, a lot more opportunity to play professionally overseas as well. Like I got a buddy, he plays in France, doing just fine. Making plenty of money over there. Okay, you can play in Spain, right? Like there's so many professional leagues in Europe that you can go play in and still make a pretty decent living in, right? Meanwhile, like we look at the NFL, we look at football and just the way that that's kind of built, and it's like you can play in the NFL, which would be pretty great, or you can play in the CFL. Like those are really your only two options. Whereas, like let's say you don't make it to the NBA. Well, you can play in the G League. They make pretty decent money there. You can play in Spain. They make great money over there. You can play in Serbia, Lithuania. Like you can play France. You can play wherever. You can play in Australia. There's plenty of guys who go play in the Australian league. Like it's pretty freaking great. Basketball. If you want to make money in sports, that is the way to go. Speaking of basketball, I've got free agency winners and losers coming at you next. And the Pacers. What are they going to do with their future? Because they have a boatload of young talents, and decisions are going to have to be made here at some point. They have been linked to potentially wanting to make a trade to the Utah Jazz for Lauri Markkanen, who's a one-time All-Star, 27-year-old that other people seem to like way more than I do. Way more than I do. But I digress. We're going to talk about all that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. Talking NBA free agency, the Pacers, what are they going to do with their future? Before I talk about that, though, I was perusing Twitter, in the break, just allows my brain to kind of go dead. I don't have to, think about anything. I can just kind of, take, a short little break. And NCAA football just dropped the in-depth dynasty look. Oh, my gosh. This looks insane. Okay, I don't know if I like it. I wasn't able to actually, watch and listen to the video. But I bookmarked it. You're recruiting the transfer portal. You're recruiting high school athletes. It looks super in depth. It looks like so much fun. I can't wait. July 14th. I'm trying to look. I ordered it to where I get the game early so that because I'm so excited. And there we go. Yeah, so it's set to come out on July 19th. I think I'll get it on the 16th. And I told my wife, I said, Amelia, July 16th, do not bother me. I'm sitting down in front of the TV, and I'm playing the crap out of this game. It's been a decade in the making. Been waiting for the return of this. It's finally back. NCAA College Football 25. Cannot wait. I'm ordering pizza. I'm eating pizza, and I'm playing the game. That's what I'm doing, okay? So if any of my wife's friends are listening, she is free on July 13th. So, yeah, cannot wait for that. Something else that I always get excited about is NBA free agency and the Pacers. What are they going to do? What are they going to do to kind of enhance their future? What are they going to do to potentially repeat a run to the Eastern Conference Finals? And they haven't done much yet, which is not surprising. They re-signed Siakam, they re-signed Obi Toppin, which is great. And those are good things. Those are good players. But they still aren't as good as Boston or Philly, Milwaukee, or Orlando. The Cavaliers just brought back Donovan Mitchell on a 3-year, $150 million deal. There are teams in the Eastern Conference that are just as good as, if definitely better than, the Pacers, the Knicks are in that group as well. I didn't really mention them. And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, what are the Pacers going to do? Because they've stockpiled all of this talent. Okay, I mean, they are loaded with so many good players. Halliburton, obviously, he's the best player on this team, but they're young and they're athletic and they're fun and they can all kind of do the important things that teams want for their players to do. When you look at their roster, it's Halliburton, who's 24. It's Isaiah Jackson, who's only 22. I think some teams might take a flyer on him. It's Benedict Mathurin, who's only 22. Okay, it's Andrew Nembhard, who's only 24, and Aaron Nesmith, who's only 24, and Ben Shepherd, who's only 22, and Obi Toppin, who's only 26, and Miles Turner, who's 28, so he's kind of in his prime, and then Jarris Walker, who's 20. They've got just a plethora of these young, talented players, and they aren't all getting to play. And so, what are they going to do with their future? Right? They have too many players. And not enough minutes to go out to those players. Okay, they don't. Loaded with talent, and they can't all play. So at what point do the Pacers start venturing out and looking to trade some of these players? And which ones do they choose to trade? Right, I think that's really kind of the tough decision here, because I wouldn't be surprised if they move some players this year. Okay, especially since Lauri Markkanen is on the market. He's available. He's, a good player. Was an all-star a couple years ago. Has some injury issues, but he's a good player. And so, the Jazz have made him available. The Pacers have reportedly been interested. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see what the Pacers wind up doing, because the report is basically that the Pacers are interested in trading for Lauri Markkanen, but they don't want to part with their young talent, which makes sense because no one ever wants to part with the young talent that they have, right? Like, why would you want to send away your good young players? I don't know anyone who wants to do that. So, yeah, I mean, what are the Pacers going to do going forward? And really quickly, my discussion on college football has caused the YouTube chat to kind of talk about it, which is cool. I like it. That's the cool part about watching on YouTube. Indie Sports Ticket. Head over there, subscribe, watch on YouTube. I need people to put some respect on my age. John M. in our YouTube chat saying that Jonathan is too young for the original Nintendo and for the PlayStation 1. The original Nintendo, yes. PlayStation 1, that was the first console I ever played games on. Okay, it was great. I have a Bally at my parents' house. When I go home, we pull out the Bally. Some of you guys probably don't even know what that is. We pull out the Bally and we play. It's literally just a controller. You got a joystick on top and you've got a trigger. That's it. And we play that more than anything else. Okay, so PlayStation 1, I know where that's at. You know, the original Nintendo, no, but like I know the classics, Mario, all those games. Okay. I'm on top of those. But the PlayStation 1, it's my first console I ever played on. My dad bought it. He wanted to get an Xbox, but he was like, no, PlayStation controllers are smaller, easier to put in my son's hands. And so, yeah, that was the first thing that I played on. And once again, the Bally, if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's an absolute blast. Back to what I was saying about the Pacers. Loaded with talent. When are they going to start moving these players, and who are they going to move? When I pose that question, which players are they going to trade? Which players are they going to move? Are they going to move draft picks? Like, how are they going to do that? Everyone is going to nominate Jarris Walker to be traded because we haven't seen him, right? And there's this notion for some reason that that because he played in the G League, he's not very good, even though there's plenty of rookies who spend time in the G League and then turn out to be fine NBA players. Okay, believe it or not, when you get drafted into the NBA at age 19, like you aren't always exactly ready to go play against, grown men. Okay, it's a hard thing to do. So when I ask who are the Pacers going to trade, and people throw out the name Jarris Walker, I'm telling you, I would be very surprised. I'd be shocked if the Pacers decided to trade away Jarris Walker because they don't want to do what the Clippers did. You say, Jonathan, what did the Clippers do? Going back, 4 or 5 years now, the Clippers decided that one offseason, they're like, we want to sign Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard was like, yes, I would love to leave the Toronto Raptors to go and play for the Los Angeles Clippers. And, they're like, great, come play for us, Kawhi. And the Kawhi Leonard was like, only if you get a second star. And so the Clippers are sitting there and they're like, geez, we really want Kawhi Leonard, which made sense. He was coming off of winning a finals. He just won the finals MVP. He was like one of the 5 best players in the world at that time. So it made sense that the Clippers wanted Kawhi Leonard. So the Clippers are sitting there and they're like, we got this kid. His name's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay, we drafted him high. We drafted him in the lottery. He's a good player. But we want Kawhi Leonard, which means we're going to trade away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Paul George. That's what we want to do. And now, fast forward, 4 or 5 years, however many years it's been, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is now the 4th best player in the world. That's what he is. And, the Clippers didn't really get a great look at him. I'm sure that they had, some sort of hypothesis on whether or not he was going to be a good player or an average player or a great player or a bad player or whatever. And they're like, we don't care. Instant gratification. We want Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So they move Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's now the 4th best player in the world, and they look stupid for it. They trade away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 4th best player in the world, so that they could pair Paul George with Kawhi Leonard and never even appear in the Western Conference Finals. Okay, and meanwhile, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's got a pretty decent chance at making a run to the Western Conference Finals himself next year. Okay, so NBA teams don't want to move off of players before they know what they are, especially when they use the 8th overall pick in the draft to acquire them. Okay, like the Pacers are going to be slow to move off of Jarris Walker. Okay, now if he was like 24 years old, then it'd be different because they'd have a better grasp on what kind of NBA player he is. But he's not. He's 20. Okay, like there's plenty of time for him to develop. Okay, like players continue to I've sat back and I've watched Jayson Tatum, his entire career, and he's gotten better every year, and he's 27. Okay, like there are potentially, this doesn't happen to every player, but there are potentially 7 years worth of growth left in Jarris Walker. Okay, like that's a real possibility. Okay, and people can come out and they can say that he's a terrible draft pick and that he's not very good and all these different things. You don't know. You haven't seen him play. Okay, like you have no idea. And there are plenty of guys who get drafted at the age of 19 years old who show up in the league and they aren't quite ready because they're a decade younger than half the guys in the league. Okay, like it's normal. It's a normal thing. Okay, so I would be shocked, stunned, whatever word you want to use, if the Pacers decided to trade away Jarris Walker, especially since Jarris Walker is the very thing that they need. I talked about this yesterday. Pacers need a big, long wing defender, and that is the upside of Jarris Walker. Okay, that's what he is. I'm excited to watch him play in the Summer League this year. We're going to get a good look at him. He's going to have good games. He's going to have bad games. It's fine, whatever. I just want to see what the kid looks like because he's only 20 years old. He's only 20 years old. Okay. And once again, there are plenty of 19-year-olds who get drafted and spend time in the G League. Okay. There are plenty of people out there who swear by Jonathan Kuminga, who plays for the Golden State Warriors. He was drafted 7th overall. Guess where he spent a lot of his rookie season? Guess where he spent a lot of his second season? In the G League. Okay. Like that's where he spent time. And people are going to knock Jarris Walker because he didn't play very much this year for the actual Pacers. Well, yeah, there's none. There aren't any 19-year-olds good enough to play on teams that make runs to the conference finals. There aren't any. The Celtics didn't have any. The Mavericks didn't have any. That's not true. They had Lively, which he's the exception, not the rule. So there's him. When you look at the who did they play? Oh man, who'd they beat? I forget. The Timberwolves, they weren't running 19-year-olds out there, and the Pacers weren't. This is normal. Okay, it's normal. It's going to take time for Jarris Walker to develop, and the Pacers are not going to move off of him until they know what he is. Okay, because if he is what they think if he ends up being the player that they think he can be, which is a 6'8", long wing defender who has playmaking ability on offense and the ability to shoot the ball, then guess what? We're going to sit there and be like, wow, we are so glad we waited to see Jarris Walker develop, right? Because if they trade him now and he turns into an awesome player, right? If they pull the Clippers and they trade away this young prospect that they clearly like, because if they didn't like him, they wouldn't have drafted him, okay? And they trade away this prospect that they clearly like just for him to bloom and develop somewhere else, they're going to be sitting around kicking themselves, just like the Los Angeles Clippers are right now. Pacers are not and should not trade away Jarris Walker. Same goes for Benedict Mathurin. Okay, those seem like the two young players, along with Tyrese Halliburton, that the Pacers want to build around for the long term, right? Short-term future, next 3 or 4 years, it's going to be a lot of Halliburton and Siakam. But once Siakam's contract ends, Mathurin, Walker, Halliburton. That's what it's going to be. Okay, so it's going to be interesting to see what the Pacers do going forward, trying to kind of bridge this gap of winning now with Siakam, but also knowing that Halliburton's only 24, Jarris Walker's only 20, and Benedict Mathurin's only 22. So going to be interesting to see what they do going forward with all of that. They're going to have opportunities to upgrade the roster throughout the rest of this offseason and during the season as well when teams look to sell right before the trade deadline. Lastly, before I wrap up the show, Fever playing tonight at 9:30 against the Las Vegas Aces. It's happening tonight, 9:30. Should be a good game. If the season ended today, the Fever would be in the playoffs as an 8 seed, only half a game back of the 7 seed, only a game and a half back of the 6 seed. So, they're right there. They're in the mix. This looks like a team that could make the playoffs. They have the third best record. They have the third best record in the WNBA in the month of June. So, they're coming off a good month. Hopefully, they can keep that momentum rolling. Playing a good team tonight in the Aces. 10-6. They've got the best player in the league on their team in Asia Wilson. So, going to be interesting to see how they do. This is going to be another good test for them to see how good they're going to be. So, should be fun. Should be interesting. Can't wait to watch the Fever tonight. Can't wait to see what the Pacers do in the Summer League. I don't think they're going to make any other moves in free agency, and that's fine. Like, they've got a lot of talent. They need to sort out how they want to build the team going forward before they do anything rash. Okay, they need to figure out which young guys they want to keep, which ones they want to move off of, and then from there, they can figure out what trades they want to make. Thanks for tuning into The Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back again tomorrow from 10 to noon. Coming up here in 5 minutes, The Dan Dockett Show.